Stephen A. Smith, if you haven't heard, did an unbelievable goof. And I'm going to try to play this for you right here. I'm going to try to play this for you, and I think you're going to be blown away. And I think you're going to say, my God, this is amazing. Stephen A. Smith decided to break down this game earlier today on First Take. And I'm going to play you this clip, and it is phenomenal, all right? Let me pause it, go back to the beginning. All right, this is Stephen A. Smith. Let me get it up on my phone. If you haven't heard it already, Stephen A. Smith, prep king. Nobody has ever broken down a game better than Stephen A. I've long said it. All right, here is the video. Hopefully you guys can hear it. Here we go.
I'm going to have some faith in Spencer Ware and thinking that, he can do some things. I'm keeping my eyes on this matchup right here.
Spencer Ware's out.
I'm sorry?
Spencer Ware is out.
Oh, yes, I forgot. I'm sorry, Max.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Absolutely, he is out. But I'm thinking Tyreek Hill. I'm thinking Patrick Mahomes. I'm also looking at the San Diego Chargers on offense, and I'm thinking about Hunter Henry and the way that he's played this year and as effective as he's been. He's going up against Derrick Johnson, and I got to keep my eyes on that because I'm looking at it from the standpoint.
All right, so there is Stephen A. I'm not sure 100% if you could hear it, but Stephen A. Smith, in the space of 20 seconds, referred to the LA Chargers as the San Diego Chargers. I'm going to break down that audio right there. That is, first of all, easy to do. It's very easy to screw up and make the mistake of saying the San Diego Chargers. I can understand that. It's even somewhat easy to say that you think Spencer Ware is going to be a big impact on this game, even though he may well be out. Confession. I didn't know Spencer Ware was out in this game until after I'd already sent in my gambling picks on Lock It In early this morning, because I thought, you know what, that actually makes a lot of sense. Spencer Ware, I thought, probably would score a touchdown. He may not play, so I changed my pick to Travis Kelce. Having said that, Hunter Henry has not played this year, and Derrick Johnson is no longer on the Kansas City Chiefs. As whiffs go, that's about as bad of a whiff as you can get on a major national television show. All right? We're going to break this down, I'm sure, on the radio show tomorrow, too. But what is amazing about that clip is you need to understand how television works. There is a huge staff of people involved in breaking down a game. It doesn't happen by accident. We have, I don't know, like 10 guys and girls who work on Lock It In every day, and they help make sure that we're informed to be able to go on and talk knowledgeably about a game. So I haven't heard anybody say this, but I think it's possible somebody hates Stephen A. Smith and was just piecing out on the show, and they knew he just took whatever they sent him and said it verbatim on the air without doing any of his own research. And I think it's possible they just plugged that in and they pieced out on the show, and they were like, screw you, Stephen A. Smith. You're going to look like an idiot when you go on the air and say that the matchup that most intrigues you on this game is Hunter Henry and Derrick Smith, because I don't think that very many people would ever even come up with that matchup. Like, I don't buy in. When you say Hunter Henry's had a really good year and he hasn't played all year, I don't even think that many people know who Hunter Henry is, right? I just don't even believe that there are that many people, unless you're a hardcore Chargers fan or you're an Arkansas Razorback fan and you remember the pass that he threw back the lateral against Ole Miss. I'm sorry, Ole Miss fans. Most people don't know who Hunter Henry is. And some of you are saying, oh, Derrick Johnson, whatever. My point here is that's not the matchup that anybody would naturally go to. That's actually kind of an obscure matchup to decide that you're going to focus on. Mahomes, all right. Tyreek Hill, all right. Phillip Rivers, even Antonio Gates. There are lots of people that your average NFL fan knows who are on both of those shows. And the idea that you would end up with Hunter Henry or Derrick Johnson, I'm telling you right now, it just doesn't happen by accident. Somebody said, Derrick Johnson's a great lineman. He's not on the fucking team. All right? I don't care how good of a linebacker Derrick Johnson is. He's not on the team. Okay? If you shout out a guy who is not on the team, I don't care whether he's good or not. He's not on the team. That's like saying you think that Alex Smith's going to be great on the Kansas City Chiefs, and he was on the Kansas City Chiefs for a long time. The man's not on the team, so you can't cite him. It doesn't happen by accident. Spencer Ware is injured. It's easy to see how you forget that Spencer Ware is injured. He has played this year. It's easy to see how you screw up the San Diego Chargers and the LA Chargers. Everybody does that. They just moved. Nobody knows Hunter Henry. And Derrick Johnson, or whatever the hell his name is, ain't on the team. That's a big whiff. I think Stephen A. got set up. I think somebody was leaving First Take. This is their peace out moment. I think they cut and pasted that in. They knew that Stephen A. Smith would go full on Ron Burgundy because he doesn't spend the time to do a lot of prep. And if they told him that the biggest matchup in the game was Hunter Henry against Derrick Johnson, he would go on television and say it and look like an idiot. Now, they couldn't have prepared for the Spencer Ware situation or the San Diego Chargers thing, but that turned this into the Mona Lisa of bad takes on television. I have a lot of sympathy for misspeaking, but when you go 0 for 4 in a 20-second segment and you cite a guy's performance all season as playing well and he hasn't played and he's Hunter Henry, and I guarantee you Stephen A. Smith couldn't pick Hunter Henry out of a lineup, and then you also cite a linebacker who is no longer on the team, that's a pretty big swing and miss. I love it. I think it's funny. I actually think Stephen A. Smith, if he did this once a week and got something completely wrong, I actually think it's much funnier than him actually breaking down the game. When Kornheiser or somebody like that, that's why they have Stat Boy, when they utterly fail, I think it's really infinitely funnier. I would just own this if I were him. I'd be like, you know what? I got a staff. One of my staff members put that into a report, and I just read it. And they just threw me right over the middle, and they got me wrecked. I would put together a clip of all the worst hits in the NFL, and I would put my face on it if I were Stephen A. Smith, and I would replay this clip, and I would go into it over and over and over again. I would lean into it. I'd be like Sheryl Sandberg at Facebook. When I goof up, I just go own it. Just lean right into it. But this is such a big goof up that there's no way to explain how it happens without somebody, in my opinion, trying to set him up, because focusing on Hunter Henry and Derrick Johnson is so insanely ridiculous that I don't understand how that could happen. Somebody's just saying, why would those be the players that he would think of? Exactly. Now, the other thing that could have happened, here's my other hypothesis as someone that does television. If it wasn't a peace out moment, I'm leaving, Stephen A., you're an ass, I'm going to humiliate you. It's also possible that somebody just cut and pasted a preview that they had done for First Take of a prior Chargers and Chiefs game because they play twice a year. And this is the same breakdown they gave Stephen A. last year. And he said the same exact thing this year because somebody just took the breakdown from last year's game, and instead of doing a new write-up to give him notes, they just cut and pasted the notes from last year into this year's game. That also could happen. As somebody who does television, I can easily see how one of the sleep-deprived PAs is deciding, hey, I got to get this prep work done for Stephen A. Smith, and they just took the document from last year when I believe Hunter Henry and Derrick Johnson would have actually been playing, and they just moved it over. Now, this is why I don't try to be an expert on everything. People are like, hey, Clay, how come you don't talk about Major League Baseball every day on your radio show? Because I don't watch Major League Baseball every day. When I go on my radio show, the promise that I'm making to you, and same thing with my bets, is that I actually watch the games. I might get things wrong, but I sit down and actually watch the games, and all of the opinions are mine. When I sit down to do the radio show, I will not have received one single note from my radio crew. So when I sit down to talk at 5 a.m. when the mic comes on at 5 a.m., nobody else has done an ounce of prep that I have gotten into. So if I get something wrong, it's all on me, but there's nobody out there who's sending me a bunch of different things and takes and saying, hey, have you considered this angle? Here's a bunch of stats to help you. It's all me. As you get more famous, you have entire staffs that will put together arguments for you, and that's why I think that Stephen A. Smith was just relying on the staff, the PAs there, and I think that's the way they set it up. I think they set it up, and somebody either set him up and put him over the middle and let him get wrecked, or there was somebody out there who just cut and pasted from last year's breakdown of the Chargers and the Chiefs, and they took last year's matchup and they put it in here. He may well have gotten Ron Burgundy, which is hysterical. It's really, really funny. Now, I get it. Stephen A., I don't know how long his First Take on. He also does a television show. There are relatively few people in the world who do what I do, right? I wrote 3,000 words about DAZN and the Canelo Alvarez fight and how that could change the sports media business. I did 3 hours of live radio. I'm going to do a half hour here talking to you guys on Periscope and Facebook, and then I'm going to sit down in the chair and do an hour more television on FS1. That means at any given day, I am live on the air for 4.5 hours, plus local radio interviews that I do to try to keep everybody happy. So there is a huge amount of individual content that I do on a daily basis. And I don't always get every fact right. I say sometimes things that you guys disagree with. I come back, I say, you know what? You may disagree with it. Opinion, the difference between opinion and also facts. But if I get a fact wrong, I try to fix it. And I don't know how you fix this if you're Stephen A. It's actually, I think it's hysterical. I think it would be amazing. The funniest thing to me about the entire clip is the way that Teddy Bruschi is sitting there and the face that he makes as Stephen A. is saying the matchup that most intrigues him is Hunter Henry against Derrick Johnson, because I have found this to be the case. Sometimes when people are so wrong, you don't correct them because they're so wrong that you're like, wait a minute, am I the one that's really wrong here? Everybody on the planet has been in that situation where there's a conversation going on, somebody says something that is so irrationally wrong, and you think for a minute, wait a minute, maybe I'm the one who's wrong. Like, I remember this happening on ESPN was doing a broadcast of the Auburn-Texas A&M game, and somebody was like, who's going to win the SEC East? And literally they were broadcasting an SEC West game, and the announcer said, oh, I think Auburn's going to win the SEC East. And nobody actually fixed it, right? Like, nobody corrected it because it was such a goof that I guarantee you everybody else on the broadcast was like, wait a minute. Like, that's something you should immediately correct. But sometimes when you're so wrong, you don't end up getting it corrected. And by the way, in honor of Stephen A. Smith's goof up, I decided to wear my Woke Center shirt today. So that is my analysis of how Stephen A. Smith could have gotten that segment so awfully wrong. So awfully, awfully wrong. It's almost impossible to even contemplate how that happened.